I'm Dr. Banovetz. I don't know if any of you were at my first talk, but which was on shoulders. But today we're going to talk about conditioning for sports. Of course, it's a little bit apropos today as our American women beat the French 3-1. I don't know if any of you guys are World Cup soccer fans, but if you're not, you ought to turn it on and watch because it's pretty darn exciting and an awful lot of fun. So our women now are going to be in the final game to potentially be world champions of soccer here in the next few days. So very exciting and very neat. What we're going to talk about is how you get ready to play your sport and to be in good shape for sports. And as I mentioned, I'm Dr. Banovetz. I'm an orthopedic sports medicine specialist. I'm a team physician at UWSP. I'm a fellow in the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine and the Arthroscopy Association of North America. So this is my thing that I do, and I'm board certified in orthopedics and in sports medicine. My PhD actually is in physiology, so this is a strike zone area for me, both from a medical and from a scientific point of view. So there are a number of characteristics that are important for sports, and some of these you can have some effect on and some you can't. Obviously your size, your height, the type of frame that you have, that's something that comes genetically. And it's not something that you can really change with working out or anything. Vision is very similar. As we go down, they become things that are easier for you to affect. Quickness, speed, endurance, coordination, balance, and strength. These are all things that you need to participate in sports. And some of them you can affect more, and some of them not as much. When we train for sports, we have an effect on a bunch of different tissues. So your cardiovascular system, your respiratory system, you can affect your muscle, your bone, connective tissue, and your neurologic system are all systems that we affect when we get ourselves in good shape for doing sports. So we're going to talk about the cardiorespiratory system first, and here are the things that you want to do when you train. You want to increase your cardiac output, so how much blood is your heart able to pump in a given unit of time. You want to increase your respiratory capacity, how much oxygen can you take in and breathe out in a given period of time. And then energy storage and metabolism, so how good are your muscle cells, for instance, at using that energy that you have in your body in order to perform your sport. And this is showing, for instance, an effect on respiration. The reason I show this picture is because this is showing you the way a trained athlete's respiration works. And if you look here at the bottom here, so this is at rest, and then the next section is called Anticipatory Rise. When a trained athlete knows that they're going to start running, for instance, they actually increase their breathing before they even start, okay? And then when they start, their breathing rate goes up dramatically. So because when they're trained, their body knows, okay, I'm going to exercise, I got to start getting that oxygen going. They actually learn to get that respiratory rate up very high. Sometimes trained athletes will ask me, why is it that when I go up to just one flight of stairs, I'm already breathing hard? They think, oh, I'm in shape, I shouldn't have to breathe hard to go up a flight of stairs. Well, the reason they do is because they're telling their body, we're going to start exercising, and so their body shifts into that exercise mode. So that's part of the training element of it. Now, when you're training to do sports, one of the important things you want to do with your cardiovascular system is train it in the pattern of the sport that you're planning to play. So football, for instance, is a sprint and rest sport. You go at it super hard for a few seconds, and then you go back to the huddle and you have a period of rest. And then you go at it super hard again, and then you rest, okay? Soccer is a sprint and drift sport. So when the ball is in your area, you're going hard. When the ball's in another area, you're still moving, but not as hard as you do when the ball's right in your area. Cross country is what we call a cyclic sport. From the minute you start till the minute you stop, you're going at pretty much the same kind of pace. You may speed up at certain points in the race, but it's kind of the same sort of activity all the way through the race. So that means that if you want to get in shape for football, then to go out and jog is not the best way to do that. Now obviously, jogging is better than sitting on the couch, but if you really are wanting to get ready for football, the best thing to do is go out and run sprints, because that's the pattern that you use when you play that sport. Believe it or not, you can get just as good of a cardiovascular workout with sprints as you can with jogging if you maintain a good heart rate. So the idea is that you run a sprint and then you rest for a little bit, but you keep track of your heart rate and make sure that your heart rate is staying up, that you run your next sprint before your heart rate drops back to normal. If you do that, then you can get the same cardiovascular workout in a half hour that you'd get if you jogged for that half an hour. Some people just naturally prefer to sprint, and so that's perfectly reasonable for your cardiovascular workout as long as you manage your heart rate. With any of these kind of things, though, you need to start low and increase gradually. And this is where a lot of people get into trouble because they want to run cross country, so they just go out and run 3 miles. And then, of course, they're all sore and miserable the next day, and it takes them 2 weeks before they feel like they can do it again. So then they go out and they run another couple of miles, and then they're miserable again, and they can never really get their program going. So if you say, I really want to get a cardiovascular program going, well, go out and walk a few blocks, and the next day you walk a little bit further and a little bit further, and maybe you're running, or maybe you're walking now 2 or 3 miles, so now you say, well, let me try running a little bit, a little bit of that distance. And if you gradually build it up that way, then you won't have a lot of the training problems that people have, stress fractures and this sort of thing. So that's very important. And where we see this problem a lot with athletes is the kid who sits on the couch all summer and then he goes out and wants to play football in the fall. That first day of practice, he's just miserable because he's not adjusted to the heat. He doesn't have his cardiovascular system well trained. So it's very important for people, if they want to play sports, that the first day of practice isn't the first day that they exercise. Now this is showing you, and we'll see curves like this twice during the session. They really apply to pretty much everything that we're going to talk about. What happens when you train? So this one is with respect to energy reserve. So when you train, you use up that energy, and then your body says, okay, I better store more energy so I can handle that. So your energy goes up, and then you train. Your energy comes down again. You build it up more. This is how you work to get your body's energy use to improve. Now the thing is that if you exercise again before you've regained, well then you're going to start at a lower level. And if you keep doing this, you could just run yourself right down. And again, this is someone who starts up exercising, is doing too much, not letting themselves recover. Now, you can do this, you can have a few workouts in a row, but then that means you need a longer recovery time in order to get the benefit of that, okay? And for instance, if you were gonna run a race, well, you wanna run your race right here. You don't wanna run your race here, And this is where people say, well, I've got this marathon coming up, so, but I haven't trained enough for it, so I better get a bunch of miles in the last few days before the marathon. Well, this is what they're doing, and then they're trying to run the race when they're here, okay? So this is very important that you think about this. In the more you work out in a short period of time, and the more time you need to recover before you start another cycle. We're going to talk about cycles in a few minutes. Strength training. This is a big thing that people talk about a lot. The idea of strength training is that by doing some damage to the muscle, you stimulate the muscle to get bigger, okay? And when you do strength training, you make the muscle fibers bigger. You actually can change the fiber types a little bit of your muscle, or emphasize certain fiber types versus other fiber types. The strength training improves recruitment, meaning that the more you lift weights, the more you learn to fire all the muscle at the same time. And so even without the muscle getting bigger, it can train and get better by improving the firing pattern. Really, it's safe for any age person to do weightlifting if it's done appropriately. And the key thing with younger kids is to realize that they're not going to put on muscle mass like a teenage kid would. You have to have testosterone on board, or for the ladies, some estrogen on board, before you really are going to start to see the muscle bulk get bigger. But you can improve this recruitment. So if you have a younger kid that wants to do some lifting, they will learn to fire their muscles together better, and that will work for them. For all ages, but particularly for the younger people, you want to avoid or minimize maxing out. And this is the thing that people always, oh, how much can you bench or how much can you squat? You know, these are the things that kids are always talking about. But it's maxing out is how you get injured. You know, that's when people injure or tear muscle. And so really it's best if you adjust your program based on what you're doing at each level, rather than saying, well, I'm going to do a max out and then I'm going to lift so much of my max out percentage. So you want to try to avoid or minimize maxing out. And then you want to train in the pattern of your sport. And this is very important. You know, where we see problems with this a lot are the football players where, okay, in the weight room, everybody wants to be the strongest guy. And so they start, you know, lifting in a pattern where like they're trying to really get the number of pounds they can squat up. And so pretty soon they're doing it very slow and only going halfway down, and they could say, oh, I squat 600 pounds. Well, the thing is they're not really training themselves for football. If you want to train for football, you want to be explosive. So you want to be able to get down and then fire it up at high speed, because that's the way you play football. Actually, if you go into a Division I college or pro football weight room, they don't even have the same machines that you have in your standard high school weight room, because all their machines are designed around football moves. So they don't lay on their back and bench press, because nowhere in football are you ever laying on your back pushing up, right? In football, you're pushing out, you know, so they have machines where they push out with the weight rather than laying on their back and pushing up. So training in the pattern of your sport is very important. Most sports are explosive, so for most sports, you want to push weight fast, not push it slow. And this is why if you look at a football player and you look at a bodybuilder, they're built completely differently. Because a bodybuilder who's flexing his muscles for a show and competing based on how well defined his muscles are, he works his muscles slowly over a small range. His idea is to be able to isometrically flex and make a big muscle in one position. Well, a football player needs that muscle to work all the way through the range. So the muscles on a good football player are going to be longer and smaller in overall diameter, whereas the bodybuilder is going to have these short, lumpy muscles. Okay, they're lifting for different reasons. They lift in different patterns. They have a different shape to them. This is a picture of what happens when you max out, when you try to push too much. This is someone who's actually torn his pectoralis major muscle. So we see this a couple times a year. You know, I have people that are maxing out and then they just tear the muscle right off the bone. Obviously, that's going to really set you back, because now that has to be repaired and then it has to heal, and he's going to lose all the rest of his muscle mass while he's waiting for this thing to get better. So very important, especially if you're training for sport, that you not push yourself to a point where you wind up tearing a muscle.